Tonight is lesson 24. This lesson is titled, Yes. This is the second to last lesson in the book. We'll have one more lesson, and then guess what? We're going to start all over again. Lesson 24, Yes. Principle 8, yield myself to God to be used to bring this good news to others, both by my example and by my words. Happy are those who are persecuted because they do what God requires. Matthew 5:10. Step 12, having had a spiritual experience as a result of these steps, we try to carry this message to others and to practice these principles in all of our affairs. Brothers and sisters, if someone is caught in sin, you who live by the Spirit should restore that person gently. But watch yourselves, or you also may be tempted. Galatians 6:1. As I said, tonight's lesson is titled Yes. This is where tonight I'm going to tell you all the areas of needs that we have, and you're going to say, yes, sign me up. I thought it was funnier than that, but all right. Maybe not. Joke's on me. This is, it's honestly a very small lesson, but it is very important as well. Obviously, we're not all on Principle 8 and Step 12. However, as I look through this room, some of us are. There's people in here who have completed a Celebrate Recovery Step study, and this is where we get to this point is through signing up and going through a step study. It's through making that commitment, because it is a commitment. These things last anywhere from 8 months to a year long. It is a commitment, but it's through that commitment that we're able to go through all these principles, all these steps, and get to this point where we've had a spiritual experience as the result of these steps, and we're ready to spread the message of hope that Jesus has given us. So we're going to jump right into the acrostic. The acrostic, the first letter is the letter Y. Yield myself to God to be used to bring the good news to others, both by my example and by my words. Yield myself to God. What does that look like? That looks like surrenderance. That is fully surrenderance heart, surrenderance of your life, surrenderance of your will to follow and carry out God's will and God's purpose for our life. Galatians 6:1 again tells us, if a Christian brother is overcome by sin, humbly help him back onto the right path, remembering that the next time it might be one of you who is in the wrong. Share each other's troubles and problems, and so obey the Lord's command. When we have yielded to Him, God can use us as His instruments to carry our message, His message to others, both in our words and by our actions. I've shared this before in Celebrate Recovery when I surrendered my life to Christ, August 2nd, 2015, on the floor of a detox. I told God word for word. I told Him, I said, if you'll change me, I said, I'll do whatever you want me to do. Looking back on that now, almost 8 years later, I had no idea what that entailed. But I have learned through my journey, becoming the pastor here and standing up here in front of you guys, I'm just be real. I'm not a people person. My wife will tell you I'm not a big talker. But what is more important to me in my life today is that I yield myself to Him and I allow Him to use me. Because to just be 100 with you, that's the greatest thing that I've ever accomplished in my life, is that the Creator wants to use me. And I thank Him for that. The E stands for example is what is important. Your walk needs to match your talk. We all know that talk is cheap because the supply always exceeds the demand. I try to be somebody who my walk matches my talk. I've learned with running recovery houses now for 3 years, I've never asked a single guy that's came through these houses to do a single thing that I myself have not done at some point in my recovery. I try to make that a principle in my life, to never ask somebody to do something that I'm not willing to do or that I have not done already myself. Being an example, that is the most important thing as being a witness, calling ourselves Christians. That's the most important thing that we'll ever do, is being a living example. I've heard it so many times, and I find it to be so true that sometimes your life may be the only Bible that somebody ever reads. From somebody, whether it's at the workplace or wherever you're at, and somebody has heard you say that you're a Christian. Whether you realize it or not, when you do that, a bullseye goes on our back. And other people are watching us. They'll begin, once you've said this, okay, how does this person talk? Are you at the workplace and are you cutting up with inappropriate jokes with the other guys? Or do you stray away from that? Are you using foul language all the time? Or because if you are, they notice that. But they also notice that if you don't use foul language, they notice that as well. I'm big on music. I just am. And I know music is powerful. What kind of music are we listening to? And I'll stand before you here right now. And God is convicting me right now of that. Because I'll try to justify, I love hip-hop. That's just what I love. I love hip-hop music. And I've been justifying it lately because I listen to the edited version. I do. You can pull my Apple Music right now. If you go to my playlist, it ain't got a single cuss word on it. But guess what? It ain't right. It's not bringing nothing positive to my life. And I'm literally, as I stand before you, I'm being convicted of it. Ooh. 1 Timothy 1:5 says, arouse the love that comes from a pure heart and a clear conscience and genuine faith. If you want someone to see what Christ will do for them, let them see what Christ has done for you. I can look back, and when I worked at the sawmill, one of the great things about working at the sawmill was that I worked there for 3.5 years as a drug addict. And I left there for about a year. And when I went back, I got the opportunity to go back there and work there for another 4 years, a born-again believer. And looking back on that experience, the job itself, I hated it. But when I look back there, God used me so much at that sawmill. And this is not me bragging on myself, so please don't take it as that. God used me at that sawmill. If I didn't bring 20 or more people, different people, to this church with me on a Sunday morning that had never been to church before in their life, or who had not been to church since they were a kid, then I didn't bring none. And looking back on that experience, I think it was because my walk matched my talk. I'm able to use these examples about did you involve yourself with inappropriate jokes in your language, I'm able to use those as examples because I didn't do that. I didn't partake in the foolishness. I had a job. I went there. Everybody there knew how I used to be, and they saw how I was now. And whether they asked me or not, I told them about Jesus, and I told them about what he had done in my life. I told them this is why I was a drug addict, and this is why I no longer am. It's because I was saved. The S, serve others as Jesus did. When you have reached principle 8, you are ready to pick up the Lord's towel, the one with which he washed the disciples' feet in the upper room the night before he was crucified. That's what we all want to do, ain't it? We all want to serve other people. That's why the church is in such need of service. That's why CR is in such need of service, because everybody wants to serve. I'm just keeping it real. First and foremost, how do we begin to know or learn how to serve as Jesus did? Where do you start? How do we do that? First and foremost, you might want to open up a Bible. You can go to the book of Matthew, the book of Mark, the book of Luke, and the book of John. These are the Gospels. These are the written accounts of the life in which Jesus lived on earth. That's the starting point. You want to know how Jesus served, how he lived his life? We should probably read about it. You guys ain't going to like me after tonight, are you? Come on. John chapter 13, verse 14 through 15 said, Jesus said, and since I, the Lord and teacher, have washed your feet, you ought to wash each other's feet. I have given you an example to follow. Do as I have done to you. Boy, if only it was that easy, right? Just line everybody up and I'll just wash all y'all's feet. And then you'll do that tomorrow, right? You'll go to work, and you'll take a bucket with you and a towel. That boss that you can't stand, that coworker that you can't stand, you're going to wash his feet because Jesus washed everybody's feet, right? Because, that's what we should be doing. Maybe not literally out here washing feet, but I think you get it. And I'm guilty of this. I am. People rub me the wrong way sometimes, and that's about it. Then I just cut you off. And that's something that I struggle with, and that's something that God continues to grow me in and mature me in, though, is in that area. I think one of the greatest illustrations of how Jesus served others. And they're sitting there having the Last Supper before he's going to be turned on by Judas. And he knows that Judas is going to betray him. He knows it. He's foreseen it all. Not only do they eat dinner together, but he still washes the feet of the man who, after they're done, is going to get up from where they're at and go turn his life over to the Pharisees for 30 pieces of silver. Could y'all do that? I couldn't. If I know that you're about to turn on me and lead me to my death, I'm not eating with you. We might fight. I ain't eating with you. You go to Barabbas. The examples of Jesus. I understand it's hard for us to comprehend because we're human. We're 100% human. He was 100% human, yet 100% God. Can I get the musicians to come up here? We're going to get ready to open these altars up. The lesson is called Yes. This is in Principle 8, Step 12. Jesus' life was a yes. He knew everything that was before him. He knew how he would die. And he still said yes. And as I just said, he was 100% human, but he was also 100% God, because before he was betrayed and he was in the garden, he asked God, if there's any other way, please let it be. But not my will, your will be done. That was his yes. Yes, I'll go to the cross. Yes, I will die for them so that they would have hope. Even though they're going to turn on me, even though they're going to betray me, even though they're going to fall on their face time after time after time after time, I love them so much, God, that I say, yes, I'll do it anyways. That's the God in him that we can't comprehend, that he loved us that much. When the Pharisees took him to the Romans before Pilate, there was a man, Barabbas. He was a murderer and he was a criminal. He was a thug. And he asked the people, Pilate did, do you want Barabbas, the murderer, or do you want Jesus? Because every year he would free a prisoner. And the people said, we want Barabbas. And if you read the story, and if you don't fully understand Jesus and his life, you would think that, well, okay, this is what led him to the cross. When he was in the garden, he also could have called down 1,000 angels to protect him, and he could have stopped everything from happening. So this was his yes as well. This was his yes. We're all Barabbas. He went to the cross for us. He said, yes, I'll go for you, Bob. I'll go for you, Jeff. I'll go for you, Zach. I'll go for you, Ken. I'll go for you, Danny, Steph, Jamie, John, everybody. I say, yes, I'll go hang on that cross for you, so that you could have hope in your life. So that though you'll become addicted to drugs, when you surrender to me and what I did on that cross for you and the sacrifice of my life, I will free you and deliver you and heal you in Jesus' name. I don't know who you are, what you're going through. Well, actually, I do know a lot of people in here. I shouldn't have used that term. I've just felt in my spirit today, since about 4 o'clock, I just kept hearing in my spirit, I leave the 99 for the one. leave the 99 for the one. I don't usually do this. We don't usually do this at CR. I'm going to ask everybody to bow your heads. I just feel this is what I'm supposed to do. I just think there's somebody here tonight who's ready to give their yes. I just feel it in my spirit. I feel that's why God sent you here this evening. You haven't surrendered your life to Christ. You've not made that commitment. You've not given him your yes. And I just want to ask right now if there's anybody